Well, it's been a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Hope you had a great 4th of July. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove. Matt, what'd you do for the 4th?
I laid low. I went to the Sabres development camp in the morning for work. On Friday, I had to wrap up some things, just kind of get ready to go. And then now we've got a little bit of time off up until training camp starts. So it was a pretty nice, quiet weekend, which I am totally okay with. I saw you went to Savannah Bananas. How was it?
Amazing. Fantastic show. I mean, if you didn't go, you need to go next time they're here, next summer, whatever it is. 16,000 people, 3 straight days. We went to the first one on Friday night. It was as advertised, Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, basically. That's what they are. It was super entertaining, like from start to finish. In the party in the plaza, you're waiting for seats. Waited 45 minutes out front 'cause it's general admission. Some people waited longer than that.
Yeah.
But once you got in, but they had a big thing going on out there, big party, big event, and they had people on stage and getting the crowd pumped. But once you got in, Matt, the pre-baseball game stuff was awesome. And just the events they had going on, the cool entertainment they had. And then during the game, amazing. Rules are really cool and fun and super entertaining.
Yeah, it looked like it was a lot of fun for everybody who I know who went. I saw it was all over social media. It was all over all the local news stations this weekend just because it was a big deal and there was so much interest. I didn't know a ton about it prior to this weekend. I've learned a little bit about it, so now I'm a bit more interested in maybe checking it out at some point. I think it would be really fun when our daughter is a little bit older and could probably understand a little bit more of what's going on. So yeah, I would imagine at some point I try and go, and it seems like it's just continuing to get more popular.
So one of the rules is if there's a foul ball,
Yeah, fan
and
catches
if
it,
fan
right?
catches it, the player is out. The game we went to, there's 16,000 people there. One foul ball happened to be hit and was caught, and it was caught by one of my travel baseball 10-year-olds that I
Oh,
coach
no kidding.
on our team.
Now, did he have a glove or did he
He
bare
did.
hand catch it?
He caught
Okay.
it with his glove, or people bring their gloves, so he caught it with his glove.
Mhm.
And his name is Colin Stimson. Shout out to Colin. And the Bananas went crazy because it was against the firefighters. So he got a firefighter out. That's the team name, the firefighters. And so they brought him out of the stands and did an interview with him on the field. He was on ESPN and everything.
Oh, that's really, really cool. That's awesome. I like, from my vantage point, because we've talked about it on this podcast a lot. I'm not a huge baseball guy. I like how this is making baseball fun for a lot of
Yes.
people. And it's just, really, really taken on a life of its own. So for me, that's cool. But I will say, I even watched a little bit of baseball this week. I'm really struggling without basketball and without hockey right now. So I'm just trying to find something to watch on TV that's sports. So I found myself watching the Red Sox and Yankees games on Friday night. I did not see the catastrophe as far as the Red Sox are concerned on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I watched the game again. So I've taken in more baseball in the last 3 days from local news segments on the Savannah Bananas in those 2 baseball games that I watched than I have in probably years.
Well, Friday night was a catastrophe from a Yankees perspective. They were one strike
Yes.
away from winning and lost the game on
Yeah.
a 2-run homer and then an extra innings. But that's a good place to stop talking about that and transition to football because the Yankees have lost, like as we sit here today, I think they're 6-14 in their last 20, maybe something like that, which is really, really, really bad. 5-15, something like that. All right. Bills are going to open training camp. Let me ask you. They open training camp on the 24th.
Yep.
Today is the 8th. In your world, Matthew, how many days is that? And how many days do the Bills open training camp? Today's the 8th. They open on the 24th. We're recording this in the middle of the day, but it's not noon yet. It's late morning.
Yeah. Okay. So quick mental math here. 12 days would get us to the 20th. And then I would say 3 more days gets us to the 20th. So I would say in 13 days. That's personally what I would say, because I don't think you count the day that it starts. And technically, right?
13? No. You can't. It can't be that short. They open on the 24th.
Excuse me. My bad. Bad mental math here.
Okay.
So I would say we're 2 weeks and 2 days away. So
Right.
17 days.
Okay. So
because 14.
Yes,
15,
I agree. Okay, I agree. So wait a minute. The reason I ask is I had this debate with Joe DiBiase. Excuse me, my co-host on WGR.
Yeah.
No longer my co-host. Now he's just hosting the morning show, Jeremy and Joe. But either way, I think it was him. He counts like today. I don't count today, right? I mean, I think it's something like that. We always have a difference on this. I just say tomorrow is the 9th. Today's the 8th. Tomorrow's 9th, that's 1. And then the 10th is 2. And you go on. So when you get to the 24th, you count that day. Also, you
Yeah.
do count the day it's on. You don't count today. That's the way I look at it.
I think you just have to count one of them. You either count
Okay.
today or you count the day it's on, but
Okay.
either way you get to the exact same answer. So whatever the number of days it ultimately is, I think you just in
So
my
16.
mind, I don't count today, but I do count that day.
16 though, you're saying, right? You're going to say
Sure.
16?
Yeah.
Okay. 16 days away from the Bills opening training camp. There are still plenty of questions that people have going into camp. We didn't have many questions about the quarterback position, of course. A little bit we
No.
touched on in the last podcast, and that was mainly at the backups. Of course, they have Josh Allen as their starter, but maybe a little bit different at running back. Same in the regard that they have a starter in James Cook, and we know he's the guy. There might be a question about what the workload is for James Cook. We can get into that, but also what's behind him. I find this position really interesting, Matt, because of how the Bills treated it this offseason. I didn't think they had to draft a running back in the middle rounds, and they did in Ray Davis. I don't like that. We talked about it. I'm against drafting running backs in the middle rounds. Now that he's on the team, I think you kind of have pressure he has to play. You don't draft a running back in the middle rounds unless he's going to play. But then I say, but you have Ty Johnson. So how much does he play? So I'm not concerned. I'm wondering how this is going to play out.
I guess the question then becomes, as far as the running back position as a whole, is James Cook is going to get the most work, he's going to get the most targets, all of that kind of stuff. Who is number 2, and how do you think that divide looks? And if you take it as a group, as the 3 of them, because let's assume right now all 3 of them are making the team, what is the percentage of touches, of targets that they ultimately get? As it stands right now, I really liked what Ty Johnson did last year. And I think that if he can do the same thing he did last year, he deserves to be the guy that gets the second most, at least carries. I think Ray Davis is going to be the guy, though, that gets the second most catches and targets in the passing game. So I think it's going to be very situational how they use these guys. I think James Cook is going to be a little bit of everything. I think Ty Johnson will be the change up back, short yardage guy, kind of like what they thought they would have before Damian Harris got hurt. We'll see what happens. And then I think Ray Davis is going to be all right, we're going to use him in the screen game. We're going to use him in a couple different areas, try and keep defenses on their toes. I like the position as a whole, though. I like the skill sets and how they complement each other.
So we're showing you right now on the screen on the video side of the podcast. If you're watching it here at Sal Sports on the YouTube, at YouTube is where you go. Sal Sports is the channel, by the way, where you can find all of our videos. James Cook, you see, I have it. This is my loose depth chart, basically. Okay, it's my loose depth chart. It's not obviously exactly who knows, but running back is the second column. James Cook, number 1. We know that. Then it goes, I have Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. I think you have to put him that way to start. Darrington Evans, and then Frank Gore Jr. We'll see how the rest shakes out. We can talk about those guys. I still have Ty Johnson ahead, but to me, again, I'll go back to, I try to think about, Matt, what the organization thinks and how they're operating. I agree with you and what you said about Ty Johnson. I like Ty Johnson. I think Ty Johnson, you brought him back. He has a role in this team, and I think he should pretty much be the second running back. But if that's the case, then why did you draft a 24-year-old middle round back? So to me, their actions speak that they're going to leap Ray Davis ahead of Ty Johnson, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, but I guess that's more of what do they value, a projection or past production? And that's such an interesting conversation about any position. But in all of the situations that Ty Johnson was involved last year, he did pretty well. I don't remember a lot of times where they gave the ball to Ty Johnson and he did not accomplish what he was trying to accomplish, whether that was a short yard gain or whether that was using him in the passing game or if he was in there to block. I think they liked what he did. So maybe this is an ease Ray Davis into it type of role, or maybe they think he can just immediately become the number 2 guy. And he and Ty Johnson can almost do the same thing he did last year, which would be, I think last year it would have went James Cook, Latavius Murray, Ty Johnson for most of the year. And then at the end, Ty Johnson leapfrogged Latavius Murray. Maybe this year it's James Cook is James Cook, Ray Davis is Latavius Murray, and they use Ty Johnson in the exact same ways they used him at the end of last year.
Do you want to guess? Do you know how many carries Ty Johnson had last year total?
It couldn't have been a lot. I would guess. I'd guess 40.
He had 30. Not a bad guess. He had
Okay.
30.
Yeah.
30 carries total. Yes, Latavius Murray had more than double him, 79. Josh Allen was the second leading attempt guy at 111. That's not a surprise. But Ty Johnson at 30, and then you go to Damian Harris at 23 before he was hurt. Leonard Fournette at 12. Okay. I think for this season, for this to work the way that they probably envision it, you probably have to have more for both Ty Johnson and Ray Davis. Like one of them's got to be like maybe in the 40s, or maybe at least you say somebody's in the 40s and then somebody's in the 20s or 30s, right? Like I envision that probably happening here, unless maybe at the end of the day, they say, you know what? One guy is out. And in that case, it's probably Ty Johnson. It's not the guy you just invested a middle round draft pick in.
Well, I think the other thing we need to factor in here too is I'm anticipating that they run the ball more this year, and I'm also anticipating that Josh Allen runs the ball less. So there's going to be more carries that are going to go around, and I can't imagine that they throw a bunch more on James Cook's plate. I think that they like what he did last year, and we can expect a similar workload. So that means to me there are more carries out there for both Ray Davis and for Ty Johnson. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, Ty Johnson is probably closer to a 50 carry guy this year. And then Ray Davis is, I just don't know. I mean, is Ray Davis a 30 carry guy or is he a 70 carry guy? It's all going to depend on how much they run the ball. I think right now, though, I'm leaning, I understand your point about Ray Davis being a draft pick. I think that Ty Johnson will have that role until he proves he can't have that role. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Okay, so I would think we'd both be in agreement that they're only going to keep 3, right? And then Reggie Gilliam makes 4. You're not keeping 4 of these guys.
No.
I'm going to throw up the roster again and take a look and show everybody what this looks like. Take a look at the second column. Cook, Johnson, Davis. If you're going to do that, there's no room for Darrington Evans or Frank Gore Jr. to make the squad. These are practice squad guys. Darrington Evans actually had a really good preseason last year. Remember that game against Chicago, his former team? He was released, and then he actually went to Chicago, and then he went to Miami, and he played for both them. Now he's back in Buffalo. Frank Gore Jr. actually is a guy I think the Bills do really like. And to be quite honest, this is why I hate talking like this. All right, I want to tell you, I want to say this. Here's a disclaimer, okay? I hate saying what I'm about to say because it sounds like I'm trashing a guy like Ray Davis. I am not whatsoever. This is why I am against drafting a running back in the mid round, though, because I think I could get whatever Ray Davis gets for me pretty much out of Frank Gore Jr. And he was an undrafted free agent.
I don't know. I understand. I agree with you from a positional value standpoint, but I still think there's a big difference between a guy you take in the 4th round and an undrafted free agent, at least with what your expectations are and what your opportunities are. I think when you draft somebody, you expect them to step into a role sooner than you do with an undrafted free agent. And I also think it's a little bit of an insurance policy because if you didn't have James Cook or if James Cook gets hurt, I don't know. I feel like you feel a little bit better about the situation having Ty Johnson and a 4th round pick as opposed to Ty Johnson and a guy that most people have probably never heard. Ray Davis was very productive in college, even though he bounced around to a couple different places. 3. And he was really good in the passing game, too.
Yes.
So I think that's a big reason why his skill set was what the Bill. He's like, you know, he can do a little bit of everything. And I think that's what they wanted. I think that they tried for a couple of years to get guys who had specific skill sets, and it didn't work great for them. So now I think they're looking to somebody who can do a little bit more of everything. Ray Davis could probably come in and be a short yardage back. He can definitely help you in the screen game. I don't know what he's going to do in the block and, protection, but he's a rookie. Give him a little bit of time.
Okay, before we end this segment on running backs, we'll transition to offensive line, the guys blocking for these running backs. Question for you, okay?
Sure.
Last year, James Cook finished 4th in the NFL in total rushing yards, 1122. He finished 6th in the NFL in total yards from scrimmage, 1567. Right now, you think he's higher, lower, or the same in those rankings? 4th in rushing yards, 6th in yards from scrimmage.
Lower in rushing yards.
Meaning he won't be as high. Like he'll be 5th.
He won't.
Or,
Lower
like, meaning.
Worse. Not,
gotcha.
Not bad, but worse. Similar in yards from scrimmage. I just
you
think
did say you think they're going to run the ball more, but that's because
I don't
think they'll give it to other people maybe.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
I think it's going to be a little bit more I don't want to say ride the hot hand because James Cook is still going to be this team's feature back. But I do think that when you invest a 4th-round pick in a running back, you have plans for him. And Ty Johnson, even though he only had 30 carries last year, his production towards the end of the season increased. So I think that even if you look at James Cook, let me see if I can bring up his game logs from last year real quick.
He was ninth in the NFL at 4.7 yards per attempt. As you do that, I'm going to say, I think James Cook was fantastic last year and does not get nearly enough of the league-wide, national recognition for how good he was in his second season.
So James Cook's best game last year, undoubtedly, is that Cowboys game, right?
Oh, 100%.
He was really good in that game. The next week, the next game against the Chargers, he had 20 carries for 70 yards. So it was not like a great efficiency game. After that, the last 2 weeks, he has 16 carries against the Patriots, and then he had 13 carries in the regular season finale against the Dolphins. In the playoffs, he had 18 carries in both of those games. So, I mean, it was the 25 carry game against Dallas was an outlier. Most of the other games, he was around 12 to 15 carries a game. I would say this year, I think that's a little higher. It's probably like 15 to 18 carries a game, but I think those other guys are going to get a bigger piece of the. I don't know. I don't see a lot of games. Not that he had a lot of them, but like a 25 carry game and a 20 carry game. I would venture to guess that over under how many 25 carry games does James Cook have this season? It's probably like a game and a half. So I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying I just think that he's going to have a similar amount of carries and the other guys will get a bigger workload.
One final note on the running backs before we transition to offensive line. Ray Davis did not participate at all in minicamp with a knee injury. So hopefully he'll be fine.
You know how many receptions
go ahead.
You know how many receptions James Cook had last year? Do you know off the top of your head? In the regular season.
20.
44.
Wow. More than I
44 for 445.
I should have thought about that. Yeah, I should have.
4 touchdowns.
At that. Okay.
No, I just think.
Go ahead.
You think that number goes up? It's a pretty big number. I know that they're losing a lot of targets, but that's pretty big. 44 is not nothing. He had 54 targets.
I don't know if that number goes up.
I don't either.
I think with Kincaid and the way they want to have that volume of receivers and all the different guys in the mix, I'm not really sure that number goes up. Ray Davis didn't participate in minicamp. He had a knee injury. Brandon Beane said he thinks everybody that was injured should be able to be okay. So we just want to monitor that as we go forward with Ray Davis on the running backs. Let's talk about the offensive line, the guys blocking for him. Okay, Matt Bove, Channel 7 WKBW TV, Sal Capaccio, WGR Sports Radio 550. Follow us on Twitter. You see our handles right there at Matt_Bove, at Sal Sports. You can also, by the way, watch us right here every time we do a podcast, a video cast on the Sal Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe, by the way. Subscribe to the YouTube channel because then you get all these episodes right away, and subscribe to us on audio. Either way, whatever flavor you like, audio, video, we're right there. You can download, you can watch the audio, but just kind of put it on in the background to listen to it, and we do it wherever you pod on It's Always Game Day. Matt, I'm going to throw up the offensive line. Sorry, folks, the Always Game Day logo's there. I can't move that right now, but it doesn't matter. You see who they are. Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, David Edwards. Is that the starting five? I put him at the top of my depth chart right there. Is that the starting five with Deion at the left, Spencer Brown at the right tackle, Connor McGovern at center, Osiris Torrance at right guard, David Edwards at left guard?
Yeah, I don't even think it's really a question. I mean, unless there's an injury, which we can't project. If everybody is healthy, I'm pretty confident those are going to be their starting five. I don't really even think David Edwards would be the one who is probably, the one in pencil. The other guys are all written in pen, but I even think David Edwards is a pretty safe bet to be their starting left guard.
I think the next four guys are their next four guys, which is why I put him there.
Yeah.
And however you want to wash them out, which is, to me, La'el Collins is your swing guy. He can kind of play anywhere. He's kind of your new Ryan Bates a little bit to me. Like, I think he could do a lot of different things for them. Ryan Vandermark is the backup right tackle and probably even left tackle at this point. I think that he is a guy that he's your swing tackle. Maybe La'el Collins is, but either way, Collins has more versatility. Maybe Vandermark's first off the bench at tackle. Alec Anderson, he's your interior guy, swing guy. He can play center. I think they like him a lot. But then you have Cedric Van Pran Granger, where this is a guy, Matt, that a lot of people thought he could take the job from Connor McGovern, or at least force McGovern back to guard, essentially taking David Edwards' job. Do you think that could happen?
No, I don't. I don't. And I think that I was a little bit more skeptical about the transition to center for Connor McGovern until I talked to him about it.
Mhm.
And he genuinely does feel like this is the position he is
Yes.
supposed to play and is better fit to play. And that's impressive to hear from somebody who played really good as their guard last year. So I wonder, okay, well, if he plays the same level of football at center next year as he did at guard this past season, they're going to have a really, really solid, at least 3 positions with me, actually 4. The only one I really have questions about is left guard. I don't think that he's going to get moved. I don't think he's going to be dethroned. I think their future at offensive line is with Deion Dawkins at left tackle, Connor McGovern at center, Osiris Torrance at right guard, and then Spencer Brown at right tackle. I think Spencer Brown took a really big step last year and
Mhm.
played really, really well. I really don't have a lot of questions about the offensive line aside from that left guard spot.
I think their offensive line was pretty good last year.
Mm-hmm.
They have really done organizationally. I'm going to say this, Matt. I think organizationally, they've done a really, really good job of rebuilding the offensive line over the last few years. They've had
Mm-hmm.
some parts in and out. They've had some nice years. And then you had like a Feliciano and Daryl Williams when they re-signed them because they played well, but then all of a sudden things didn't go so well. I think they're in a good spot on their offensive line right now. Let me throw this back up again. Like, you might have a question, and I'm not saying you specifically, anybody might have a question about left guard, and I don't blame you. But David Edwards has started in this league for a Super Bowl champion in the LA Rams. And he,
Yeah.
like that's a guy that can play. Lael Collins has been a good player in this league. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this organization, now this remains to be seen. This is more of a subjective part. They really like Vandemark and Anderson. I think Vandemark could be a guy that takes over for Spencer Brown at the end of this year. If Spencer Brown, if they can't come to a free agent contract, they're fine with that. And Alec Anderson to me is a guy that I think they really like in the interior. You look at that. That is a group of 9 that I think they're super comfortable with. And even just from my standpoint, I think that's a good group of 9. You might not have the best starting 5 in the league, but I challenge any team. We're not talking about Josh Allen's contract. Sorry for me to hit that button. But I challenge you to go 9 deep on most teams like the Bills can at offensive line.
I think Ryan Vandermark is the one who internally they are really high on. I think they like Alec Anderson too, but I think after last year, Vandermark really kind of
Yep.
became, I don't want to say a lock on this roster, but last year he won a job, just straight up won a job in training camp. And then even though he wasn't used a lot, they just really like what he brings to the table. I wonder how many even actually he played in 12 games last year, did not start any of them. So, I mean, these are just, his snap count must be so low because all of those guys. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when did he even play? I don't really even remember him
I
playing.
think he came in one game for a play or two for Deion. I think Deion had an equipment issue or hurt his hand on a play or something
Uh,
like that. And Vandermark came in. I'm going to check his snap counts here in a second, but I
yeah,
think you're right.
I mean, it has to be so minuscule because Osiris Torrance did not miss a snap. Connor McGovern missed one play. So, I mean, obviously, those are interior guys. I don't remember. Did Spencer Brown ever get hurt last year? I don't remember him getting hurt. Like, even in a game. I know that they all played all the games together. Nobody missed a start. But I don't remember any times when he even would have left the game.
No, I'm looking right now. Let me look at the snap counts real quick. Here we go. So snap counts last year for the Buffalo Bills. This isn't from the Bills officially. This is Pro Football Reference, which is generally a good source for this. They could be off by a snap or two here or there, but generally here. Spencer Brown, I'm sorry, Ryan Vandermark played 47 snaps last year. Probably had to be in blowouts, I guess, right?
Yeah,
There a
probably.
blowout there? Not that they had a ton, but that's probably where that came from. He played 47 snaps last year. Let's look at his game by game. Ryan Vandermark last year, game by game statistics. He played 9 snaps against Washington, 8 against Miami,
Blowout.
3 against the Giants, 4 against the Jets, 7 against Dallas, blowout,
Huh.
8 at the end of the year against Miami. That was it. Deion went out for a few snaps, I think, against Miami last year.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the year. So yeah, you're right. So I'm comfortable where they are right now. Let's just take a look real quick again at the group. And let me ask you.
Do you think Cedric Van Pran Granger is a bigger lock to make the team than Will Clapp?
Absolutely he is.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Will Clapp played, I think, like started like 12 games last year as center. I'm just saying, like, do you if you have any questions about Connor McGovern as your center, wouldn't you want the more experienced? I mean, it also depends on how many they're going to keep, right? I mean, what do they usually keep? 10?
9 or 10. They can dress 8, which triggers the extra guy on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is a guy, dude. No, I hear what you're saying, and I understand why you're asking the question. But Matt, we're talking about a guy in Cedric Van Peren Granger that played for the Georgia Bulldogs for the last few years,
Yeah, I know.
was
It's
a
basic.
starting center,
Yeah.
and this guy's played high level and great football, and again, a draft pick, like a middle round draft pick. They're not just cutting these guys.
Well, that hasn't been true though. Not for fifth round picks. For fifth
Right.
round picks, it has been. But like sixth round picks haven't just made the team.
Is he 6th?
No, I think he's fifth. I think he was a
Right.
fifth round pick. So, I mean, even I think a couple years ago, okay, let's look last year. Wasn't Justin Shorter a fifth round pick?
But they put him on IR.
I know, but he probably could have played, right? Like it was more of like
Well, that's
a red.
what this is the point you're making is my point, which is they're not going to cut them. They find ways to keep these guys because they don't want to cut draft picks.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
could have a 7th round pick that doesn't make it. That can happen. I get it. That's
they've
happened
had
in the past. Rashad Wildgoose, right? Didn't make it. He gets
Yeah.
claimed,
Mhm.
right? That can happen. Generally, anything up to the 6th round, the guy is making the team or he's going to be on IR.
They've had a couple sixth round offensive linemen the last few years
Yes.
just get cut. I don't
Yes.
remember their names, but they had like a couple of them, or they got claimed by other teams as they tried to put them on their practice squad and
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like
true
that.
too. I know.
I do think that he's going to make the team. I feel like anything like fifth and after is not an absolute lock just because you got drafted, you're making the team.
Okay, so last 2 years. So last year, the 2 guys who didn't make the team were both 7th round picks. The offensive lineman Nick Broker, who you're thinking of,
Uh-huh.
and Alex Austin, who actually wound up intercepting Josh Allen when he wound up playing for the Patriots. The year before that, 6th round pick Luke Tenuta didn't make the team.
Yep.
The year before that, 7th round pick Jack Anderson, a lineman who got claimed, and Rashad Wildgoose, who got claimed. I mean, anything up to the 6th round, you are making the team. And even in the 6th round, you're generally almost guaranteed. To me, especially on a team that has to have cheaper, younger labor for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, he's just given. Can you bring up the depth chart again on the video side of it right here? I do think that I think that Will Clapp is the kind of like the bubble guy. He's the one who is most clearly a bubble player, but because of his experience, I do think I give him not the benefit of the doubt, but a stronger chance to make the team than miss the team. Also, I mean, like there's a very realistic chance that somebody is injured at any point during the offseason, and it looks a little bit different here. But yeah, I do think that the top 5 guys ending at David Edwards, you write those in pen. Lael Collins is going to make the team. Ryan Vandermark is going to make the team. Is Alec Anderson definitely making the team? You think so?
Matt, I'm going to say this. All right. This is me talking, and I will tell you, you will hear this exact same thing from Eric Wood. The Bills love Alec Anderson.
Yeah.
And he's on a very, like a cheap deal, rookie contract. Like they got cost control. The Bills love Alec Anderson. I was actually surprised they drafted Van Pran Granger simply because of how much I know they love him.
Yeah.
Now, that said, it's a business, right? You get to the end of camp. If Van Pran Granger looks great and you're like, where do we put Alec Anderson? Is that the kind of guy that you could dangle for a trade? Is that the kind of guy that you say we just don't have a spot and we're gonna have to risk exposing him to waivers? That can happen. I'm not telling you he's the next Anthony Munoz. Okay, I'm not saying that. What I'm telling you is the Bills really like the guy, and he and Ryan Vandermark are 2 guys that they have developed with Aaron Kromer. Aaron Kromer loves these guys a lot.
Yeah, and Alec Anderson is actually only 24 years old too.
Right.
So he's still pretty young. Cedric Van Pran Granger is 22, so obviously he's even younger. He's completely a new player. All this that we're doing, all of this debate, I think speaks to the depth that they have built at offensive line and
100%.
how it is not what it once was, where it was, okay, you got 5 guys you like, then you hit a wall, and then you're just really, really hoping that you don't have to go into that, cupboard and try and bring somebody up. I think that they like what they've built. If they had an injury at, one of the main positions, it would definitely hurt them if it was anything long term. But at the same time, I do think that they genuinely like the group that they have built.
I agree. And the other part is, I think that Aaron Kromer's a good coach and he fits really well with what they want. And I think that he's done a good job of developing. Give Aaron Kromer a lot of credit. Eric Wood says I don't want to put words in Eric's mouth. He would put him up there, at least, if not at the top of the best offensive line coaches he's ever been around and played for. And that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I was a little distracted. There's breaking Sabres news. I mean,
Okay.
it's not break. It's not crazy. They've signed Consta Hellenius to his rookie contract, but that is usually indicative of like I know it's not like they traded for Connor McDavid or anything. I bet he plays in North America this year. I don't think it's going to be for the Sabres, but I bet he's like a Rochester guy this year. Sorry.
No, that's all right. When you said breaking news, I'm thinking of a trade. They signed their first round pick.
It still happened. That you still got to sign him.
They did.
Still got to sign him.
On the heels of the trade they did make, Ryan McLeod coming over and trading Matt Savoy, Hellenius becomes a very big piece of the organization now because he kind of replaces on the top end depth there. Okay.
I'm sorry. It just popped up and I was
it's like, okay.
Oh, you know how you get the alerts of like, oh, boom. And I'm like, oh, yeah. It literally popped up on my laptop.
Hey, it's all good. That's why we're the next best thing to live. We're not live. We record and then we put it right up. So by the time people are going to see this, it's like literally almost breaking news anyway, because they might be hearing it for the first time. So hopefully. You're all good. Okay. You asked people at Matt_Bove on Twitter /X for questions. This is probably the fewest questions we ever got, but we do have a couple of them. Let's get to them.
Yeah, it was definitely the few. I mean, it's July.
Yes.
8th. I think we're talking about the last two segments we've done talking about running back and offensive line have put my mind in a pretzel because admittedly, I haven't really thought about the Bills a ton over the last month or so because once they stop practicing, all those, I mean, you've probably seen the videos on social media. They're all at each other's wedding. Dawson Knox is getting married. Kyle Allen is getting married. There's all these like paparazzi shots of Josh Allen and all this stuff. So like, I haven't really thought about the football team. We did talk before we started recording about the cap space that they still have. They've got some money that they can maybe use. They haven't used it yet. We'll talk about that on a different episode. But yeah, I mean, the questions, I liked this one from Sean. It was most underrated position group for the season. I kind of think we just talked about two position groups that might be in that conversation.
Yes. So I'm sorry. Did you say the exact question there? I'm sorry.
The question was, what is the most underrated?
I'm sorry,
group?
Sean. Sorry, I was looking at one from Michael, which we'll get to in a second. But thank you. Most underrated position group for the season. You think it could be the two we just talked about? You said.
I think you could make a case for running. I'm going to make a case for a different position group than we've talked about, but I think those are definitely within the conversation.
Underrated. I don't want to say linebacker because we don't know Matt Milano, but I think that these guys are just really like they're going to be so dynamic together. They're going to be so good together. Mm-hmm. I am going to go offensive line. I do think the Bills' offensive line is good. They have a good offensive line. I don't think they get recognized as being a good offensive line mostly around the league. I'm going to say offensive line is the most underrated position group nationally. Teams, look, I'm going to say it. They might not have, Hall of Famers. They might not have the number 1 or 2 or 3 best offensive line, but I challenge you to find teams in this league that can go 9 deep like I think the Bills can.
I think that that's a good answer. I think nationally, my answer would be cornerback, just because I really like Christian Benford and Russell Douglas. And we've talked about it on the podcast. Kyle Elam had a very good offseason.
He did.
Like
I have a bit of an issue with the answer though.
Okay. So I have one other position, but let's hammer out the cornerback one. What is the issue?
I love what you're saying. I agree 100%. Christian Benford is one of the more underrated players. Taron Johnson is one of the best at his position. We don't know if Kyrie, this is a leap of faith, and we don't know what's behind these 3 guys. So therefore, the position overall, I can't put in this.
That's fair. That's probably more from a starter's standpoint than an entire position. The other one that I was going to say was tight end. And once again, that's more of a national perception. I think people are very high on Dalton Kincaid, as they should be. I also think that people sleep on Dawson Knox a little bit too much. Dawson Knox is still a really good tight end. And for him to be their second tight end gives them great depth. They like Quentin Morris too, but he gives them great depth. And you look back at when the Bills are having success, Dawson Knox is very frequently somebody who is involved. You think about like almost every big Bills game the team has played over the last several years, usually there's a Dawson Knox moment sprinkled into those games. So I think
Agreed.
that with the new offensive coordinator, they will utilize 12 personnel more. And I think that they'll have more success doing it. And I think even though Dalton Kincaid is going to be the guy who gets, 90 catches, flirts with 1,000 yards, I think Dawson Knox is still going to play a very big role. So that's why I think that that's one of the more underrated positions, at least nationally. I think here in Buffalo, people know how good that position is.
I like it. I agree with you. I think they're going to have more concentration on having both of them involved, but especially Kincaid. But I think Knox becomes more of a pass catcher than he was last year, the way this offense is. So I do think it's a good group. It's a good pass catching group. And these guys can block. They're not the best blockers necessarily, but I think it's an overall good group. Let's get to Michael. My guy, Mike. Known Mike for a while. He's always loyal listener here, by the way. Mike's been with us for a long time since we started. He says, who will be the starting safeties on opening Sunday in your opinions? I love this question because I'm still the guy pushing back against Cole Bishop starting opening day. Not that I think that Cole Bishop's a bad player. Cole Bishop will be a starting safety in Buffalo. I think he's going to be a heck of a player. He's going to play a long time. I still think fans are way too many fans, not all, of course, too quick to think that he's just going to jump right in and take a spot from Taylor Rapp or Mike Edwards. Certainly not Mike Edwards to me. He's number one. It would be Taylor Rapp. And I think that's too tall of an ask of a rookie to come in and do that in this defense.
Wow, you think that Mike Edwards is the most likely guy to start more than Taylor Rapp?
Absolutely, I do.
Okay, interesting. I don't know if I would have said the same thing. I believe you. I just don't know if I would have said right now Taylor Rapp is the one who's the most likely guy to play. I just think that they like him a lot.
Mike Edwards is what they've had in Jordan Poyer for the last several years in a different type of, player maybe in some regards, but a lot of similarities. He comes over from 2 Super Bowl teams he played on, Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Kansas City Chiefs, and he played in both those systems very similar to the Bills system. This is a player, I think, who they really love, that he was a free agent and they were able to replace their safeties with.
Well, I don't disagree with the 2. I think that to answer Mike's question, I think it will be Mike and Taylor Rapp, and then Cole Bishop will be the next man up, and they'll just try and find ways to get him on the field. But yeah, I'm surprised to hear. Maybe it's just because he hasn't practiced the last couple months, just because he's been dealing with that injury. Maybe Mike Edwards is just. I think of Mike Edwards as like, okay, this guy has had success. He has made big plays. They definitely needed to add somebody. But when they made that move, I don't think I ever thought of it as like okay, slam dunk. This guy is definitely going to be the guy who starts for you a significant amount of football. So
You know what changed my mind a little bit? Now I know that people not changed my mind. What really got me there were a couple things. Okay, number one, they kind of went out and they actively got Mike Edwards, even though Taylor Rapp kind of waited a little while before they brought him back, right? It wasn't even remember Taylor Rapp wasn't he a free agent before they brought him back, or did they? When
no,
did they re-sign him?
I think they locked up Taylor Rapp early.
Oh, before
Yeah,
Edwards,
and I think
maybe.
Mike Edwards was a little bit later in the process.
Okay, I felt like maybe they kind of let it play out a little bit with Rapp. Either way, when we went to the owners meetings, and I talked to both Todd Bowles and Andy Reid about Mike Edwards, and the way they talked about him and what he can do and how he fits, they both basically said he's like the perfect guy for the Bills scheme. And I think Sean McDermott wanted him for that reason, that this is not a learning curve. And goes back to the original question about Cole Bishop, maybe. Sean McDermott wants to have safeties who can step right in and play. You don't have a learning curve here. You better go play.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp become, a top here of the 2 safeties over a guy like Cole Bishop. And by the way, we should say Damar Hamlin had a heck of a spring.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he
right?
did. Actually, that's a very good point. Yes. I think that the likelihood of Damar Hamlin making the team significantly shot up for me after the last couple months. So I still don't think he's going to be somebody who starts, but I think he's going to be on the team. To answer your question, they signed Taylor Rapp to a 3-year contract. 2 days after they cut Jordan Poyer. So before free agency even started, and then they signed Mike Edwards kind of in the middle of the month. It was March 20th. So that doesn't like change the point. That was right.
Yeah,
when
he had to become a free agent. You're right. Then I got my timelines mixed up on that. I do ask though. Let me ask. I'm gonna look it up right now. Even though they signed him Taylor Rapp to a 3-year deal, if you take a look, it's very, very
it's
like
a
low
1-year deal,
cost
right?
to.
It's
It's
basically a
like
1-year
yeah,
deal.
you can get out of it after a year. But but they're both on the same. I think their cap numbers are about similar. 2.8 it looks like for this year. Either both.
Yeah, well, I think that Cole Bishop is the piece for the future and that he will still be utilized now. But I think their long-term vision at safety involves Cole Bishop in some way, shape, or form. And then probably one of those two guys, whoever seems to be a better fit in the short term this year. And then who knows? I mean, maybe you just keep both of them and the other guy can become your number 3 safety or something like that. It's a good question because I feel like that one might be the most interesting of all right now. Even though there's a lot of questions with the Bills roster, I don't think there's a lot of questions of who's going to start. That might be the biggest or most interesting position group, right? I guess wide receiver obviously as well, but safety is probably the one that's wide receivers.
Well, yes, right. I mean, even most of these, when you have starters, defensive end, like you got 3 guys, right? If depending on what Von Miller is, you still got AJ and Greg Rousseau. They're going to play a lot, right? So they're going to rotate pieces there. Defensive tackle, it's Ed Oliver, it's Daquan Jones. As long as Milano's healthy, we know who the linebackers are. I don't think you make any argument that Kyrie Elam could start unless he just was sensational in training camp, right?
Yeah,
and that's the only way. So you're right about that. I don't think there's any starting positions open in that regard either. We just had one come in under the wire here, grinding my teeth at LazyTown716. Who on the Bills would be a fine addition to the Savannah Bananas lineup, and why is it Josh Allen? Of course, Josh would be a great addition, but who would actually, outside of Josh Allen, be, you know what? I could see that person doing this, playing in this, and being a part of this Savannah Bananas thing we talked about.
So I need to think about a goofball. I need to find somebody who's a goofball.
Doesn't it be no? They don't have to be goofballs. I think the Savannah Bananas is a lot of just entertaining, right? They're good athletes. They're entertaining. They have fun with it. I mean, to me, the first name comes to mind is Deion Dawkins.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't know how much Deion could. I was thinking of like a goofball.
I don't care how good they are at baseball, but
is Deion the funniest guy on the team right now? Is that a consensus? You think
funniest or funnest?
Most fun. Funniest is different than most fun. Deion certainly puts himself out there and is a fan favorite. Trying to think of other guys who are. There's just so many new people on the roster. It's so many new people. Because when you said who would be the best fit on the Savannah Bananas, before I started thinking about like funny, I started thinking about like baseball players. And I was like, oh, Jordan Poyer got drafted. Him. Oh, wait, no, he's not here anymore. It's like, oh, Micah Hyde's a really good athlete. Oh, wait, he's not here anymore. It's like, oh, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, Deion's probably the answer there.
Yeah. I could see a guy like Ed Oliver and his horse stuff, and routine and all that being a Savannah Banana, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Could see that.
Trey White would have been a perfect Savannah Banana. Another guy who's not here anymore. Trey used to be so much fun. Trey was such a joy to cover in the beginning of his career.
Anything else you got before we head on out of here and transition to our next position group next time?
No, not really. I mean, it's a quiet time. There's not a ton of stuff happening right now, so that's why we'll continue to talk about the position groups. So we've done now quarterback, running back, offensive line. So the next episode, I think, will be really interesting for a lot of people because it'll be wide receiver focus. I mean, we could do like 5 minutes on tight end and then 35 minutes on wide receiver because I don't know if you've heard, there's been a lot of wide receiver talk this offseason.
We'll do that next time. We'll talk wide receivers, tight ends, guys catching the ball for Josh Allen on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. You can follow me at Sal Sports. Follow Matt at Matt_Bove. Catch him at WKBW TV Channel 7 and me on WGR Sports Radio 550. All right. Till the next time on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Have a great, middle of July. We'll catch up with you later this week. Thanks for tuning in this time. Of course, Sal Sports on YouTube if you want to watch us or wherever you pod as far as audio.